Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service on the 19th day of June 2021. I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got, let's see what comes up. I seem to have forgotten the fire danger graphic here. There's some extreme fire danger up there along the Porcupine, Upper Yukon River there in the flats with high fire danger surrounding that area, and also just to the west there over toward the Koyukuk Valley and in the Copper River Basin. Still some high fire danger there. Had a fair amount of precipitation in the Copper River Basin. Central Copper River Basin the last 24 hours had almost around a half an inch of precipitation, soaking rain. By definition there, a half inch in 24 hours soaking rain, tenth of an inch, a wetting rain, and Tok picking up 2/10 of an inch of precipitation there in the north side of the Alaska Range, while 2/3 of an inch fell at Chicken in the 24-hour period. Some areas, locations in the eastern Alaska Range picked up as much as 3/4 of an inch of rainfall, while a few hundredths of an inch fell in and around the Fairbanks area, not too far out though, heavier amounts up in the mountainous terrain to the northeast, and an area just east of Stevens Village picked up, let's see, about a third of an inch of rain fall up there. So really improved the fire danger with the precipitation. A little more spotty up there over the Yukon Flats up toward the northern interior, but still some fairly good amounts across southern Alaska. Quite a widespread area of light rain falling, 1 to 2/10 of an inch falling. Again, heaviest over the Copper River Basin area, but cloudy and showery and cool conditions keeping the fire danger down there and also reducing it in the Copper River Basin. So moving on, no watches, warnings, or advisories out for the state for the next couple of days, although there is a red flag warning for high fire danger in the Fairbanks area, eastern interior, due to some windy conditions there this evening. But for storms, not much going on. We've got that westward moving cloud mass there across much of southern Alaska and actually up over the Yukon, all the way up to the Brooks Range actually. And that's bringing the rainfall in areas up as far north as the Koyukuk Valley, as I mentioned, Yukon Flats area. And but still temperatures in the interior rising into the lower to mid 70s. Nothing spectacular for the month of June, but it makes for a nice day. You can see a lot of clear skies. Chukchi Sea through the Bering Strait, St. Lawrence Island, saw some sun today, and not too bad over the Bering Sea, quite a few breaks. Looks like St. Paul, St. George are right on the edge of seeing some clearing that may be going on right now, and hopefully will last into the evening there. It looks like quite an area of clear skies just to your east. And the Aleutian, some breaks over the Fox Islands, Adak and Atka in the clouds. Bristol Bay, some clearing, and southern Shelikof Strait. And also over the eastern Gulf of Alaska, the Panhandle. Mostly sunny skies, dry day there for the southeast coast for a change. But that won't last too long. And rolling that through again, you can see the clouds, thunderstorms. They're blowing up over the, just under the Northway label there. You can see quite an enhancement, quite a few thunderstorms this afternoon breaking out in that area. That was the most concentrated zone there, creating the heavier rainfall amounts. And on the chart, again, lots of green there over the southern part of the state, Copper River Basin on up into the eastern interior, all the way to actually the thunderstorms occurring this afternoon, eastern Brooks Range area, and otherwise areas of low clouds and fog scattered along the Arctic coast, but pretty nice over the eastern Bering Sea, and then a front bringing wind and rain, gale force winds, and at least in a narrow band in advance of the front, and rain into the western Aleutians, some rain spreading to Adak this afternoon. Also a system south of Kodiak spread rain up to Kodiak Island. Wet, cloudy, kind of foggy day, Kodiak Island at the state airport in the city of Kodiak with about a third of an inch of precipitation falling. Now continuing to this evening as that system pulls northward. High pressure along the North Gulf Coast. Light winds, a little bit drier there for Yakutat. And that, of course, Panhandle, mostly sunny skies this afternoon. For tonight, mostly clear for the Panhandle, maybe some lower clouds and fog developing along the coast locally over the inside waters. Otherwise, showers persist with that trough and low center over along the Yukon River Valley area there, but showers also be seen over the Kuskokwim Valley, the western Alaska Range, ending over the Copper River Basin. Rain spreads to the southern Kenai Peninsula, Seward, Resurrection Bay, and southern Prince William Sound, Montague Island, wet for Kodiak Island into southern Cook Inlet. let's see, Port Muller, Seldovia, Homer. Probably see some rain toward morning, but Cook Inlet should be dry. And that front weekends over the Bering Sea. Main low center hangs back west of Shimia by tomorrow afternoon. Stays pretty breezy out there for Shimia and Attu. Small craft advisory winds, but that front stretching out, really weakening, and a lightning precipitation, or the precipitation amounts lightening with that band as it pushes in toward the Fox Islands. Won't reach them until tomorrow night. Alaska Peninsula fair. Eastern Bering Sea pretty good under a ridge of high pressure that's centered over the Russian Far East. And Arctic coast, North Slope dry. Thunderstorms again over the interior, and cool, wet conditions for southern Alaska. And increasing clouds for the Panhandle, increasing chance of rain along the north coast in the afternoon for Sunday. Otherwise, not too bad. Probably another partly to mostly sunny day for the central southern areas to Dixon Entrance. And then remnants of that front on Monday across the Fox Islands there for some scattered shower activity, and then showers again. Adak is getting closer to the main low center there, becomes just a widespread area of rain, fog, and drizzle. Amchitka to Shemya. Northern Bering Sea, not too shabby. Light winds, clearing, but there will be some low clouds and fog. Showers and thunderstorms over the southern half of the state on Monday, and cloudier, cooler, and damper, especially for the northern Panhandle for Monday, and the North Gulf Coast stays wet. Probably diminishing showers in the afternoon. Heaviest precipitation, or most widespread period of precipitation, will be tomorrow night and early Monday. Maybe some improvement late in the day. Otherwise, the northern half of the state looks pretty good with some partly mostly sunny skies. Maybe the usual low clouds and fog possible along the Arctic coast. But staying fair, St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait. And for the lows tonight, lower to mid 50s, or upper 40s to lower 50s there for the southeast coast, upper 40s, lower 50s. Looks like mostly 40s though for southern Alaska, mid 40s Copper River Basin, upper 40s Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, mid upper 40s Alaska Peninsula, lower 40s for the Pribilofs, mid 30s there for St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise 50 to 55 central interior, then back down to the 30 to 35 degree range for the Arctic coast. Highs for tomorrow afternoon, pushing up toward 80, upper Yukon Valley there. Of course, that'll help trigger some thunderstorm activity, and looking like in the 70s, lower 70s to the Kobuk Valley, but upper 50s there as you get out toward the coastline. Noatak Valley, though, could push into the lower 70s away from the coast. Mid 35 to 40 for the central eastern Arctic coast, 45 to 50 on the west side, and 65 to 70 for the southern Seward Peninsula, Yukon-Kuskokwim Valley areas, lower valleys, and lower to mid 50s along the southwest coast. And 65 to 70 for the Panhandle. Lows mid 50s central interior, lower 30s Arctic coast, mid 30s St. Lawrence Island, 40s for the Bering Sea, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, 45 to 50 southern Alaska. Highs for Monday afternoon shaping up like this, mid 30s to lower 40s central eastern Arctic coast, mid 40s western coast. In the 70s there, Kobuk, Koyukuk Valley, Yukon Flats, struggling to reach 70 now for the greater Fairbanks area, but 71 for Galena. McGrath Nikolai near 70 all the way down to, say, Bethel. Have a great evening.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Our first line weather graphic here for Sunday morning. We've got IFR along the Arctic coast, IFR out over the Bering Sea, becoming VFR St. Matthew Island, southwest coast, and then some marginal VFR for the northern Seward Peninsula. Small area of IFR in the central interior, surrounded by some marginal VFR, and then VFR on up into the Brooks Range North Slope and down toward the Alaska Range. Northern Kuskokwim Valley, marginal. Cook Inlet's foreland southward, marginal VFR, then IFR there for the Barren Islands, down across Kodiak Island, southern Kenai Peninsula, and Prince William Sound. VFR for the Panhandle, except marginal right along the coast of Prince of Wales Island. And then from there, we've got for the afternoon forecast, we've got marginal VFR over the northern Panhandle and IFR along the southeast coast, North Gulf Coast, covering Prince William Sound and pushing into the Coast Range, and marginal VFR into the central Copper River Basin, VFR from there on up to the eastern Arctic coast, then picking up some IFR, Aliktok to Point Barrow, and then marginal VFR, Wainwright on down to Point Lay, Cape Lisborne, Point Hope, then VFR Kivalina, marginal VFR, northern Seward Peninsula, IFR kind of surrounding St. Lawrence Island and catching the western Nunivak Island, but IFR solidly entrenched over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and some VFR on the lee side of the Alaska Range there, or the Alaska Peninsula, marginal for the Aleutian Range. And for the Monday morning outlook, VFR along the Yukon River Valley, all the way from the Brooks Range right on down to the south, toward the southwest coast. Along the coastline, IFR for the Bering Sea and most of the Aleutians, Adak and Atka, marginal. IFR North Slope Arctic Coast, IFR up across Prince William Sound, western Copper River Basin, Talkeetnas, and right along the central eastern Alaska Range, IFR Southern Cook Inlet into Bristol Bay, most of Kodiak Island, marginal for the Panhandle. And then for the Monday afternoon outlook, VFR Northern Interior, some marginal VFR there along the central Arctic coast and locally the North Slope. Otherwise, the North Slope looking pretty good with VFR flying conditions into the Brooks Range and southward. And the west side there, Seward Peninsula, northwest coast, Noatak Valley, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, VFR. Marginal VFR right along the coastline there, Togiak Bay into Bristol Bay, and then some marginal VFR down toward Pilot Point, Bering Sea and Aleutians, IFR, Gulf of Alaska IFR, Prince William Sound, IFR, and marginal for the Panhandle. And the Tuvik, VFR, same forecast for Radigan tomorrow, looking really good for Sunday for the Brooks Range, and Lake Clark and Merrill. Marginal VFR to start, trending toward VFR, probably mostly VFR into the afternoon. Same forecast for rainy, probably VFR sooner. And windy, VFR start to finish, either approach tomorrow. And for Isabel, VFR. Mentasta looking good also, VFR flying. Tanita starting out marginal, becoming VFR, kind of oscillating back and forth mostly in the morning. Still could see some marginal conditions in the afternoon, possibly. Portage, marginal VFR trending toward IFR on the eastern entrance there into the afternoon toward evening. Chilkoot and White, VFR becoming marginal. Freezing levels 8 to 10,000 feet over the northern half of the state, 6 to 8,000 feet southern part of Alaska. Then the Panhandle, 12 to 14,000 foot freezing levels there, close to the upper level ridge. Cool pocket, 6,000 feet Alaska Peninsula. Icing, a lot of moisture pushing up into the North Gulf Coast and along the north coast of the Panhandle. Could be some considerable moderate rime icing there in the shaded area there, with more scattered icing as you get to Cook Inlet and into the Kuskokwim Valley. It gets a little more solid of a mixed variety along the Yukon River Valley up and toward the Kobuk Valley. And then some icing with that weakening front, bringing some elevated potential for some icing, say tomorrow afternoon from Atka over toward Nikolsky, Nunivak Island, but nothing really that significant. And for the jet stream, a couple upper level lows there, one near Kuskokwim Bay, another one just east of Fognak Island. So westerly flow 75 to 95 knots on the south side of that. Eastern quadrant 70 to 80 out of the south right up to Yakutat, and some of that cutting up over the eastern interior. And the stronger system out west over the far western Aleutians, and 30 to 45 knot winds at 9,000 feet, 3,000 feet. We got southeasterlies, kind of a wind max there, 50 knots right around Cape St. Elias, and 35 knot southeasterlies over the Bering Sea. Turbulence-wise, looking for some light to isolated moderate chop, North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, down in toward the Kamishak Bay area. Also possibly there for the central Aleutians, more so moderate chop for the far western Aleutians.
Technology. It's the rhythm of our everyday life. We're more dependent on satellite and communication systems than at any other time in history. Disruptions can affect our economy and even our safety. To prepare for the effects of such events and minimize impacts, we need to look outside our atmosphere, some 93 million miles away, at a star we call the Sun. It's our main energy source. It warms the Earth and grows our food. While the Sun and the space between may seem pleasant from our perspective, it's anything but peaceful. At its surface exists a chaotic state of eruptions and radiation. And unlike Vegas, what happens at the Sun doesn't stay at the Sun.
Space weather is essentially emissions from the sun, radiation, magnetic field that erupts from the solar surface, pumped out into space, sometimes right towards Earth. When it impacts the Earth, it impacts our technology. That's what we call space weather.
These solar events and their effects at Earth can disrupt systems we take for granted. From causing blackouts to the power grid, to delaying offshore drilling operations due to inaccurate GPS data. Interference with communication systems can force air traffic to reroute and impact rescue response and coordination. Outside our atmosphere, solar radiation can harm astronauts and the systems they depend on. The good news is that these eruptions can be detected early. Forecasters at the NOAA Space Weather Prediction Center in Boulder, Colorado, have their eyes on the sun at all times.
The Space Weather Prediction Center is part of the National Weather Service and is very much like a normal weather forecast office. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're looking at data, we're looking at imagery, we're looking at model outputs. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches of imminent activity to our customers so they can take action.
In many ways, forecasting space weather is a lot like forecasting hurricanes. Those who rely on space weather forecasts, like electric power grid managers, are informed early on and can begin taking protective action.
When we see an eruption on the sun, space weather forecasters will issue a watch. This is much like a hurricane watch. When a hurricane sits offshore of Miami, for example, perhaps 48 hours out, we too can see way in advance that something may be coming towards the Earth.
As the storm moves toward us, it hits a monitoring spacecraft orbiting 1 million miles away from Earth.
It's kind of our buoy sitting out there offshore, and that hurricane, about 30, 45 minutes before it makes landfall, we'll get the measurements from the buoy. That's what this spacecraft does for us. That big eruption that left the sun hits the spacecraft. Now we've got the measurements of exactly what's going to impact us here on Earth, and we issue the warnings to give the power grid a heads up that the storm is now imminent. An interesting element to this whole process is that when the forecasters issue the alert, the power grid receives the alert, takes the necessary actions to protect the grid, and the average citizen never knows anything ever happened.
The number of customers who rely on space weather information continues to grow. As our reliance on technology increases, so will our need for constant monitoring of the sun.
Space weather affects technologies. As conditions develop, we put out alerts, warnings, and watches to our customers so they can take action.
GPS has changed society. Most people don't realize how remarkable and how many different applications there are.
The GPS has become an integral part, not just of our daily lives as far as cell phones and guidance for our cars and mapping, but the whole system in agriculture is really relying heavily on high accuracy GPS.
So they're using GPS to plant those seeds with centimeter accuracy. And then they can come behind it and irrigate and fertilize right where that seed is with that 1 centimeter accuracy.
The GPS creates a line for the operator that he can steer along, or you go to another level and the operator doesn't steer anymore, and the tractor has an automatic steering system on it, much like a cruise control on a car, except for when I push the button, it doesn't drive a set speed. When I push a button, it stays on a predefined line.
You don't even need lights. You can do it at nighttime. You program your GPS and it's driving that tractor for you. So it's huge, and it's changing the way that the farmers farm the fields.
6 or 7 days out.
There's an interest in GPS applications from the space weather side because when the sun is eruptive, it causes GPS to falter, and in some cases it doesn't work at all.
Productivity may suffer to a certain degree in that there's no way that I as a human being can steer as good 8 hours a day as a GPS system's going to do. It's going to be the same all day long. Some of the other application technologies, those are going to be gone. We're not going to have the ability to do good section control on sprayers and planters and fertilizer applicators without GPS.
We see a huge growing customer base in so many different industries, so many different sectors now relying on GPS and high precision GPS. They're all big customers for us.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at today's sea ice analysis. Thinning out a little bit there off the central Arctic coast, but the shore fast holding tight for the central and east side, and areas of the west side to much lesser extent, and then around Cape Lisburne, Point Hope, and down toward Kivalina to the north side of the Seward Peninsula. But the river is starting to show signs of loosening that up in those areas, and that'd be something to watch for. That coming loose here over the next few days. Still some heavier ice on the north side of St. Lawrence Island, otherwise pretty thinned out through the Bering Strait. Coastal water forecasts showing small craft advisories on the extreme north coast. East-southeasterlies 25 knots, seas 9 to 11 feet, and then 20 knots on the north coast with 8-foot seas out of the southeast, and south-southeast 15 knots, 7 to 8 foot seas on the south coast. Inside waters, really light winds, variable to south, 5 to 10 knots with slight seas. For Monday, a little bit more of a breeze there for Clarence Strait, northwesterlies at 20 knots, 4-foot seas. Lynn Canal south at 20, seas 4 feet. And still light winds for Stevens Passage, south or variable to south at 10 knots with 2-foot seas. South coast of the outer coastline there, west-southwest at 15 and west-southwest 15 to 20 on the north coast, 7-foot seas. Cook Inlet, small craft advisory. Strongest winds will be south of the Forelands, out of the north at 30 knots with 11-foot seas, 25 knots for northern Cook Inlet, Prince William Sound, northeast at 20, seas 4 feet. And small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast just under the gale threshold at 30 knots with 8-foot seas from the east and northeast. But gale warnings for the Barren Islands, east sustained 35 knots, seas 10 feet, northeast 30 for Kamishak Bay with 12-foot seas. And for Monday, those winds come down considerably there for the Kamishak Bay area, as well as the Barren Islands, down to 15 knots out of the east and southeast, 3 to 6-foot seas. Western North Gulf Coast, a light breeze from the south at 10 knots. Eastern North Gulf Coast, southeast at 15. Prince William Sound, variable to east at 10. Cook Inlet, south-southwesterlies at 15 knots. And for Kodiak Island, southeast winds 30 knots on the east side. Shelikof Strait, gale warnings, northeast 35, and then gale force gusts out of the north from Sitkinak to Castle Cape. Otherwise, the Alaska Peninsula northerlies, 10 to 20 knots. Bristol Bay, northeast at 15. For Bristol Bay on Monday, variable to the south winds at 10 knots, seas laying down to 1 foot. And Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, seas will be 2 feet with 15-knot breeze out of the east, and the Pacific side looking at 6-foot seas with east winds of 15 knots, and southerlies at 10 to 15 knots for Kodiak Island. For the Fox Islands, 15 to 25-knot winds from the east, seas 2 to 8 feet, And for the central Aleutians, small craft advisories, east-southeast 25 to 30 knots, south 25 knots from Amchitka to Shemya. And for the day on Monday, south to southeast winds, western Aleutians, or from the area west of Adak, south-southeast at 20 knots, 11-foot seas, Adak and Atka specifically, south 10 to 15 knots, eastern Aleutians. Kind of a variable wind pattern at 15 knots, pick your direction, seas running 4 to 8 feet. And for the southwest coast, north winds 10 to 15 knots. St. Lawrence Island, north winds at 15 knots. St. Matthew Island, northeast at 20. Pribilof's light wind day tomorrow, east at 10, seas 2 feet. And Norton Sound, west at 10 with 2-foot seas. And then for the day Monday, Norton Sound looking at northeast-northwest breeze at 10 knots. North 20 for St. Lawrence Island. Southeast 10 along the southwest coast, 2 to 3-foot seas. St. Matthew, St. George, St. Paul Island, northeast at 15, 4 to 5-foot seas. And for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast tomorrow, north to northeast at 10 to 15 knots. The central coast north at 15, bring it up to 20 knots there for the western Arctic coast out of the northeast. And then small craft advisories from Cape Beaufort to Wales for north to northeast winds, 25 knots. Outlook for Monday. For the central and eastern coast, northwest winds 15 knots. And the west side, northeast at 20. Small craft advisories, northeast 25, Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson to Wales, north at 20 knots, seas 6 feet. And for tonight, light winds and low clouds and fog in areas of the Arctic coast, dry, diminishing showers there over the eastern north slope, but persisting through the night along that trough axis, as you can see from the eastern interior right on down toward the Kuskokwim Bay area and Alaska Range. Rain spreads northward to the Kenai Peninsula. And that front washes out, but so much moisture coming up, looks like a rainy day, southern Alaska, Kodiak, south central Alaska, North Gulf Coast. Not too bad in the Panhandle. Weakening front over the Aleutians washes out on Monday.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.